Anything.
Okay, good evening, I'd like to call the meeting to order and have the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Yeah, roll call, please, Lisa.
Director O'Connor.
Here.
Director Holcomb. Here. Director Balt.
Here.
Director Roberts.
Here.
Director Van Meerden.
Yes.
Vice President.
Item number 3, public forum, any person may address the board of directors on any matter, business jurisdiction, which is not on the agenda. Anything, Lisa?
No.
Then we go on to item number 4, the consent agenda. We only have one item on this consent agenda, the minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 22nd, 2025. Any questions? Any move to approve? Thank you. You got a motion in a second, any more questions? Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor.
Aye.
Director Holcomb. Yes. Director Balt.
Aye.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director Van Meerden.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got item number 5, unfinished business, none. Then we're gonna adjourn to the regular board meeting of the Carpinteria Groundwater Sustainability Agency. And call that meeting to order. Item number 2, public forum, any person may address the board of directors on any matter, business jurisdiction, which is not on the agenda. Anything, Lisa?
No.
Then we got item number 3, the consent agenda. 3A, the minutes of the regular meeting of the board held on October 22nd, 2025. Any questions? Can we have a motion, please? Motion to approve. Second. We got a motion and a second, any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor.
Aye.
Director Holcomb. Yes. Director Balt.
Aye.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director Van Meerden.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got item number 4, unfinished business, none. Item number 5, 5A. New business, consider engagements of 2 trumpets for outreach assistance for the well registration and metering program in the amount not to exceed $6,800 for action, Bob.
Yeah, so this is an effort to bring awareness to the policy that we adopted back in July, I believe it was, the well registration and metering program. There's a deadline for that, for compliance to that, which is in March. And, you know, we're a little bit concerned that it's not in the front of people's minds, so we wanted to make sure that happens. Two Trumpets is a local outreach firm. They do city of Carpinteria's outreach, the sanitary districts outreach. And so they have their fingers on a lot of different pulses, and they have done work for cannabis growers as well. So I think they knew, you know, how to reach people better than just a, you know, firm out of LA or something, so they know how to do it. Our hope is that with that outreach, we'll start getting a little bit more questions and start engaging a little bit more with farmers.
What's the deliverables on this?
Outreach material, basically, yeah, outreach, so we're gonna work on an outreach plan first, so what are we gonna do, how are we gonna do this? And then outreach material.
I guess I'm surprised we don't have like contacts for all these people that we've been dealing with for several years now, that we would need to engage.
I mean, part of it, yeah, part of that is direct mailing, but sometimes that doesn't even work. We've had experience with the GSA where people call like 2 years later and say, hey, I got this letter and I just found it in a big pile. So
Yeah, could be like this would be the same letter, they're gonna call and say, hey, I got this letter from
yeah,
somebody.
well, and we send out letters on policy, but we're still not getting it, so their job is really to figure out how to start penetrating those folks.
So I had this similar question on deliverables, but even more, rather than that, metrics. In other words, I think that every meeting, we should be, they should know to give us a percentage of, here's the percentage of growers that are metered. Here's how many have come on board and here's the status of that. I think there should be some kind of metrics. I know they're doing materials, but. Hi, Mr. So-and-so, as you know, as you've been some of these things, you know, we need to meet with you and here's the deadline, and here's what happens if you don't make that deadline, and here's the steps. That we can walk you through in order to do this is painlessly and as quickly as possible, so I think there needs to be. Another metric here or deliverable in, since our last board meeting, here's how many new. Farmers have wells, meters, and therefore we are at X% of our goal. The next thing is, I think if we bring on board December 1st, that's December, January, February, March, that's just 4 months. To do this, if you can get any sooner, I would start it sooner, I would have probably started it sooner. And I just think that it's not a lot of time. Especially when we're not sure how many, I mean, all the growers, so many growers showed up and said, we need meters, and now that we're saying, here's the policy, here's the deadline. We're paying somebody outside to do that work, so I just think that there just need to be a concise plan over the next 4 months of exactly how we're gonna get this done, and I wouldn't have no problem with it starting even a couple weeks earlier than that. I voiced this earlier, I did have a problem with paying extra for the bilingual, it didn't seem like we would need that, but if it's $500, then I would be okay with that, but I just didn't really see the need for that. So that's the one big thing I would add, is I think there needs to be some metrics on how many they are signing up.
Yeah, we can incorporate that into,
Yeah, I would just add to it, I think that's really good input is to make it clear what role that firm plays and what role the staff plays in metrics reporting and so on.
yeah, I think the information. For reporting the measures of success, I think the staff will do that, we have the information.
So, and which is a statement work.
Right, yeah, so mostly what we're looking for these guys to do is just give us some, some ideas about how do we get these folks looking at our stuff and, understanding that there's some urgency to this.
We have a pretty good list of wells that need to be metered,
Yeah, we do.
and who owns them or the property owners.
Yeah, so we have the list that we use to charge the fee currently. We use calculated based on perceived groundwater pumping, but.
So the concern is that people are gonna get direct mail from us and simply not hold it.
I mean, we've already done a direct mail and we're not getting any questions or. It doesn't seem like there's,
A response.
awareness,
I think one of the things would be nice to have as a product here is an email list, as we work toward getting people sort of like. Who are the target audience and can we get your email so we can start communicating with you? If we need to saturate the communication channel. We can do that, but I think. Do we have any lists like that under development?
Yeah, we do, so when we. First started the estimating, we would do the estimate, we would send a hard letter to each parcel. I'm sure you received one where it shows the number of acres of each crop and how much water that takes. And we've been sort of weaning that down, by corresponding with people, and they say, oh, I'll work. So then we investigate and try to understand where they're getting the water. But in that process, we have email communication, so anytime that happens, we save the email and put it in the list.
I would follow up with a phone call. I mean, we know so many of these growers, it just seems like sometimes email goes into junk mail plenty of times, and you might not even pay attention, but I think that. It's time to go, this is serious, it's the law now, here's what we need you to do, and. Yeah, we work with plenty of growers through this time to set this up. Anyway, other than that, I support it, I thought that it would be a good idea for us to know. At every meeting, exactly how many activities.
Yeah, and part of this is, there's a feedback loop here, so. We're sending material out, we're trying to understand, are people actually seeing this? Are we getting an increase in calls, are we seeing, some increases in responses, that sort of thing, so. it is, it isn't just, let's throw it out into the, you know, out into the air and see and hope something's happening. It's actually some monitoring feedback.
We have no mechanism either, so if people don't register and don't meter their wells, there might be several subsets of those people who just are ignorant, people who are defiant. But, what do we do?
In the ordinance, there's a methodology where we charge, we still do the old method where we estimate a ground pumping. But it's much more, we use the greenhouse, as a metric, as a basis for that fee, and it's generally higher than any other fee, so.
Incentivize them by overshooting.
Incentivize them, yeah, by, if they don't do it, then they have to pay more. So,
Yeah, but
I'm not sure if it would be a fine really, because it would be something comparable to what would be an estimate of it.
Yeah, it's not a fine, it's just that you don't have the information.
Right,
Actually.
so this is what we have to charge.
You can't evade the calculated a different way, but then we still need to gain compliance.
We do, and I think that'll be, one way, you know, people will see their bill and they'll think, what is this, why is it so high? And then hopefully they'll come back, and call us and we'll say, well, did you put in a meter by March? 26th?
Yeah, we may wanna at some point, I know it's not in this timeline, but we may wanna consider some sort of penalty for not applying. I don't know what it would be, I know.
There are penalties for forms not being, submitted, so. There are forms for things like no well, so if someone says, well, I don't have a well. They actually. Submit a form, you know, they have got the fee or whatever it is. And if they don't do that, then there you go, yeah.
All right, well, we'll see how this goes, but I think we'll probably have to adjust as we go forward.
right, but everybody got plenty of notices in the mail, nobody's really responding. Personally, I think most farmers are pretty frugal, so if they think they're being overcharged, they'll put the meter in, so.
Yeah, you know, I guess the one thing that we we hate to say, or we hate to hear is. Someone comes, say, I never heard of this, no one ever sent me anything. You know, so we wanna have. Proof, I guess, that we've been reaching out to you in all of these ways.
So to wait, a lot of this, doing due diligence.
Yeah,
With Bob, can we get a master list that is the mailing address of that property? And then get an email address and a phone number, and maybe that's part of their. Then they should know most of those people.
yeah, we're building that database, yeah, I don't know, I mean, they might know some of the people, and might have contact info, but.
So a couple of last thoughts of mine, I guess I would take not a lot of feedback or calls on it, that they understand the program and. Don't have questions, right, that we've been talking about this for years, and then second, I don't know. That I would personally expect a big uptake right when I got the notice, if I had till March, I'm not gonna. Go through all this paperwork and try to figure it out until I kind of need to get at it.
Right.
So, and then I think it's really tough to, I mean, there's gonna be essentially no way to measure. The value of this, because people are gonna sign up by March or not, like, we're not gonna be able to say like, oh, did you get a mailer from us that was written by two trumpets and not staff and so
Right.
that's what, just.
Well, so I think it's good, it has 2 meetings per month with staff, so. It's not like they're gonna be doing all this work, we're thinking about strategy, and how do we get to that, are we getting to? And I think, we do expect. People to, start asking questions, once you start putting it in front of them face, even if it's 6 months away. We had, the early comers who were like, right away, they were on it, as soon as we adopted the policy, they were asking what kind of meter is okay, Scott Vandergaar's in the world. Scott Vandergaard actually put in the meter before he adopted the policy. So you have those folks, but then you have, other people who are just too busy to deal with this kind of stuff.
It's kind of interesting when you think about it, you have a well and you have no idea what you're pulling through the well until you. Well, a meter might be a good idea for all sorts of reasons,
I mean, I think a lot of them think they know what they're going, but.
Yeah,
You know, it's based on run times. And
That's right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second, any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor,
I,
Director Holcomb. Yes. Director Balch,
And
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Director Rounded.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
It was both. Item number 6, executive director report for financials, you would, Bob, you doing it?
yeah, I don't. You,
So this was the one,
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think we want that.
Couple of pages.
Yeah. No. Yeah, if you have any questions on it, I mean, you know, I think we're 25%, we're the first quarter, we're 25% through. Looks like we're, you know, 16.3% into the budget, so we're on expenses, so we're a little bit behind. Revenues, of course, coming differently to the GSA, they're biannually, so. Looks like we have $500,000. And $500,000 to collect, so we've had the first half of revenue come in. Net position is pretty stable, so. Your report on that.
Okay, if there's no questions, then I'd like to adjourn the meeting. And then we get back to the regular meeting of the Carpinteria Valley Water District. Number 7, record meeting. Then we got number 8, new business, 8A, and I'm gonna step out in case you're gonna take over.
8A, consider CDWG MOU to locate monitoring wells on private property for information and community.
Yeah, so this is this arose out of the Battle Lane relocation of the monitoring wells for CAP. And we agreed with the homeowners association to relocate these monitoring wells over to private farm parcel. And we worked with the owner or the representative of that owner. And we agreed that we need to develop memorandum or MOU. The reason why we need an MOU at this early stage is we can't have our application for coastal development permit with the county complete unless we have the signature of the owner. And so what we're trying to achieve is develop this MOU, get it agreed to by both parties, and then ask them to sign the application. So there is a time component to this. You have to have those monitoring wells done before we can start drilling. Yeah, before we can start drilling the injection well. Vertical cities, coast development permit.
Can I ask for everything, is that into the plan or just the monitoring ones?
No, it doesn't include the.
So we can proceed with
Yeah.
the plan before we have.
That was the plan.
Yes.
Okay, that's one.
Here's a little image that's also in your packet, which you can see where the old monitoring wells were. And now where the new ones are proposed. The parcel where this is located is an active farm operation. So we'll have to coordinate with them on getting easements and access and all that stuff. But for now, all we're looking for is a signature from them that they're okay with the application. Here's kind of just a little layout, it's hard to see, but you can see the pipe drill and the drill rig and some tanks and such. Will fill this area behind this greenhouse. And I know that, ultimately this is probably gonna be developed into some sort of housing, but during this time we're trying to get these in before that happens, the wells will be flushed to the ground, and won't really have any impact on the development of this property. So we're looking, the MOU itself is a draft. We created it, the property owner's not seen it yet. The terms are based on the meeting we had with the developer and what they asked, the questions that they asked and what was discussed. And we took this draft MOU to the admin committee, or no, I'm sorry, the recycled water committee. For review, and so they had some comments. So we're trying to hit the December 12th meeting. To get this thing executed so we can get that CDP application in and started. So that is it. If you have any questions on the MOU, or if you guys. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so I read through this and I think it sounds like, I know it's a standard MOU, and I'd also like to say that I think we were pretty lucky and very grateful that got an alternative back in that situation. It's just that, the last paragraph in the last bullet, the farm worker housing, the coordination, and also, which happens to be the last paragraph in the document, that doesn't seem to fit. And it's worded vaguely enough that one would almost think that we are going to be supplying the water service in exchange for this situation, even though it's on a different parcel. And I talked it over with Bob a little bit. And of course, he explained, well, we have to do that anyway. And I said, if we have to do that anyway, because that's what we do, that's fundamental to our organization, it doesn't need to be in this MOU. It's a completely separate thing that we're going to do anyway, right? Like we do with anything else, there's a new building going on and we have to go. So I felt, I read the bullet and then I read the corresponding paragraph. And it just, everything else fits together, the easement, everything fit fine. I know this is just an MOU. But to me, it just seems like that paragraph and that bullet, the paragraph needs to come out, especially if it's in no way tied to the project, and it shouldn't be. Then there's no point of having the paragraph there. And if this is what we do on a normal basis, and oh yes, by the way, there's an employee housing thing going up and they don't have water yet, so we'll be supplying them with water. That's what we do. We'll figure that will be part of what we do anyway. It's not a part of this project, and to put it in here leads one to believe that there's somehow tied together.
Yeah, we discussed that at the committee meeting. I thought the takeaway was that we were gonna have, I don't recall what we ended up.
Well, yeah, the takeaway was, you guys didn't like that, so we were just gonna bring it to the board for discussion, like that's the way the board wants to do it.
And I think we talked about how we get out of sentence, if the landowner feels comfortable. Maybe more comfortable with something in there that we won't refuse service. I don't think in a normal application, we would refuse service. You know, we subject to, so I think we will agree to collaborate, I think it says now. In accord with the water district's rules, regulations, and policies and procedures. So if you add that, that would be understood, just like we would treat anybody else.
Yeah, you don't want a riff of a quid pro quo,
That's what I was thinking.
especially after what we went through.
Yeah, I think it just makes him more comfortable, like there's something there, but I think Bob's trying to negotiate and he needs a little bone, but if we say it, so it's so benign. And we're not doing anything that we wouldn't treat any other applicant for water service any differently. I think then it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
Alright, I don't agree with that.
I mean, I guess I don't see, they've never seen it, I don't know why we can't throw it out as a start.
Is he expecting it to be in here?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. It was just a part of the discussion.
Yeah.
So there's no expectation for it to be there.
Okay,
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you asked.
No.
No, we didn't.
Start by taking.
Well, that's
Right.
just take it
Yeah.
out.
We take it out.
And just take it out, if he hasn't asked for it, then that would really be, right, so I think we should take it out and explain. Of course, we provide water
Yeah.
to any new entity, including yours. Which is even, it's on a separate parcel, so it should be a separate thing anyway.
Well, I'll remind, we're in concession, So we don't wanna get into the negotiation. You know, out here, but, we can start it as a first step and just go from there.
Yeah, I think it's clear, you have the same rights and privileges as any other member, any other landowner or any other applicant.
Right.
Anything else? Well, just a couple of thoughts, that rather than get into languages, wanted to point out a couple of things. For comment is, it's early, I assume, have to know staffing. There's a couple of points in that agreement that talk about staff, but it's not complicated.
Staff.
Oh, you know.
Are we on?
You're talking about the operating agreement.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on, we'll get there. That'd be handy.
Anything else in the MOU?
Oh, no, okay, no,
All right.
Yes, I can get them.
Okay, then we got item number 8B, consider draft operating agreement for CAP for information about.
Yeah, so this is the last of three agreements, operations agreement. We had the Jeff out, the grounds, and those, you approved the Jeff out. And the grounds, we've been negotiating through this with the CSD. And we met with the recycled water committee on this and went through it again. But I'm gonna have Chris kind of highlight where we're at currently. So with that, you want
Sure.
to use that to advance the
Yeah.
slides?
Use the clip. Okay, so just a quick agenda overview. Ops agreement and the next steps. So as Bob noted, this is the third and final agreement between the CSD and CPWD. First two have been approved, were approved around this time last year, and we've been working the past year on the operations agreement, including two meetings with the Recycled Water Committee, where they had a chance to look at the agreement back in May timeframe. We since took feedback from that meeting, incorporated comments, had both the district's legal counsel as well as the CSD's legal counsel review the agreement. And so what is included with the agenda packet, I think, is a red line version of what was the agreement that was provided to the Recycled Water Committee back in May, and then the changes since that meeting. So I'm just gonna walk through the agreement article by article, just really highlighting what I think are sort of the more critical or important provisions. But of course, if there are any questions about anything else that's in here, we can just stop at any point in time and just talk
so
through
go
that.
article by article, we can ask questions. as well.
Absolutely, yeah, we're not, I don't wanna say this to the end, it's just fresh during the conversation. Oops, wrong mouse. Okay. Okay, I'm skipping the first two articles simply because, one, the first is just referencing the JEPA, and the two is, definitions. So
Well, why did it switch from 500 to 2,000 and then 5,000 to 10,000? For capital modifications.
oh, okay, we can hit that now, I was gonna hit that as part of the capital modifications, definition. No, you are, but there's an article,
Never mind, I don't wanna go.
Okay, okay.
I thought you were skipping over.
no, we won't,
Okay,
we'll go back to that one.
okay, sure.
So Article 3 is construction phase services, so included within this agreement, which is obviously an operating agreement. We do need to have some concurrence about what will occur during construction, because the CSC will be, they are a very important partner for this project during construction. So we have, generally speaking, a couple of provisions within here for both the construction period and then sort of starting commissioning period, sort of kind of still defining those within as two separate periods. Main notable provisions here, CSD is going to participate in the meetings that we have, both weekly standing meetings, and other sort of submittal review processes, and that CPWD is reimbursing CSD for their services during this time. To date, we haven't, but that will become more of their time during construction, and so it seemed prudent to reimburse them during that time, now that the project is firmly moving forward.
Will those be like weekly meetings?
Yes,
And we are gonna pay staff time on their end to cover weekly meetings?
It would- probably be Craig and their chief plant operator for,
It's expensive, guys.
it's 1 hour meetings and they're weekly. Yeah.
Promise?
Say it.
Promise?
That they're 1 hour?
Yeah.
No. On average, I would expect them to be an hour, but right, I mean, obviously they can extend.
Who pays for lunch?
Nobody. These are,
Well,
yeah.
Put that in there.
Yeah.
Any other comment?
Well, I might bring up here.
Sure, please.
Showed up in several places when I was talking earlier about staffing. It seems that we talk about staffing sort of, with assumptions that it's just going to occur. And there's not a quantitative statement of what staffing is. Particularly up front where there's this overlap during the start of the construction. And it just said will provide staffing. So my base question is, do you have staffing identified? Quantitatively, and is there incremental staffing as a result of that is planned for sanitation district? Or do we not know?
We have a general sense of what the expectation is for staffing of this facility during normal operations, which is about 3.5 staff. That's a number that's been included within the operating budget that is going into rates. It's a number that was calculated based on a prior study that was done for Morro Bay that is of similar size, as well as talking to Monterey. They've got their project, their IPR project, and they actually started operating their plant with 2 staff. They share similar arrangements where their AWPF is on the same general site, although it's much further away than our AWPF plan is to the general CSD layout. But nevertheless, it was a good comparison. Now they've also told us they're going to need to hire more. So 3.5 seemed like a good spot to start. We won't know until we really get into operations exactly that number is. But I think this project is also unique. I noted that Monterey One Water, they sort of operate both, but we're considering a significantly more sharing of staff than what they kind of utilize up there. So it's still a bit of a guesswork. I'm not sure if I answered your question completely, because I think you're talking about during commissioning.
Ask the question as intended either, but I appreciate the background. I don't question the veracity of the estimates. What I'm questioning is should there be a quantitative expression commitment to resources in the MOU? Because budgets are budgets. Things happen after you establish a budget. You're not going to get very far by turning back and saying, hey, you had it in the budget, but you're not providing it now. So many things that can change. Just suggest that there be some sort of minimum staffing level expressed in the MOU. So there's the floor, not an open hole. You know what I mean?
we could start with 2 and.
Yeah, I think there's, that we could. There's so much in this agreement though that requires them to meet waste discharge permit requirements. The floor, I'm less concerned about than,
As long as you're comfortable, there is a loophole.
There was a question about the CPO, was that in the recycle block committee?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have an answer for that.
I don't yet, no. right, so we still need to try to really discuss that with Craig.
So just so we're all on the same page, I guess, so. The question was based around, my initial understanding was there was gonna be a CPO. Designated to this part of the treatment process at CSD, and now. It may or may not be, I guess. Put on the existing CPO, the entire treatment process. Which is how you could end up like a halftime or quarter time ratings being, but that it is not a. Direct overseer of just the CAP project, that it is for the entire system at CSD. So that was the.
Yeah.
Question that popped up in the recite for me.
Go to 4?
Thank you.
Okay. Oops. Okay, Article 4 is just operation and management generally. Really kind of the key provisions in this article include our delivery and quality. Guarantees, if you'll call them, although they're not really guarantees per se, we'll call them that. But it just, we're identifying sort of the concept that we'll be tracking key performance indicators, KPIs, and that if they are not being met over certain period, then a corrective action plan must be put in place that is approved by the JMC, the Joint Management Committee, which is composed of 3 board members of the Water District and 2 board members of the CSD. So the Water District has the majority there.
Can I ask a silly question that I missed earlier?
Sure.
So 411, called out specifically that those staff will possess and maintain an AWTO certification.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for sure the legal requirement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 100%.
So that new AWTO or
Yes, yeah. Other sort of, information in here for 5. There was some language added here due to sort of recent, although now it's somewhat outdated language. But there was a period of time where SoCal Edison was not going to allow us to have, or they were going to require a sub-meter from the CSD and not a separate meter, utility meter. That would be really problematic for us, the way that the facility, the CSD existing facility is configured and ours. But nevertheless, it was a possibility because it really took some real gumption by everybody on the team to get Edison to finally agree. So the language in here, should a separate utility meter now be possible, is a bit outdated. They've appeared to have agreed recently that we can have 2 meters, but we're keeping the language in there for now, just in case things fall apart.
I've got another one, so.
No, I mean, this is why we're talking, yeah.
4.5.3.
4, 5, 3.
Is when it's like a shutdown when that occurs and they go together.
Yes.
So. I guess, is there a spot where we do or should outline like what the regular operational hours are? I mean, if their AWTO staff are off-site for training or whatever. I mean, I don't think we should be holding the bag if they're not manned because they're.
Yeah, so. Right, it's a good question. It's actually a really good question. One that I suppose we still are working with DDW on. So our plan, what we've proposed to DDW, is that this facility is going to be manned regular business hours. That we're not going to have somebody on site 24/7, 365. We don't want to pay for it. The idea was that the person on call would have their certificate, but that somebody's not going to be there. Nevertheless, they're still responsible for 24/7, 365. That has yet to be formally approved by DDW, but that's what we're proposing to them.
And so I guess like specifically, if we don't call out what the expectation is to CSD. They're just setting it, and whatever they determine is what it is. Like, we don't say regular business hours, or we don't say Monday to Friday, 7 to 3, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they decide that, or somebody calls in sick, and the other guy's off on maternity leave, and they have no AWPS staff,
Yeah,
then this lets them not start it until they return.
This is in the context of a power.
All right.
power outage, right, yes, right, I mean, yeah, I can see, I see what you're saying,
Like, I guess my big question is like, should it be more specific than when AWPS staff are not on site? Like maybe when they're not scheduled as opposed to not on site, them not being on site shouldn't be a. If they're expected to be there during business hours, then. Because they're training or not on site for whatever reason. I don't think that should delay the return to operation.
yeah,
I don't know if this is about where it goes, but it.
right.
This is where it talks about it.
Right, yeah, I mean, I certainly, the expectation for staffing will be in the permit. So, yeah, if we need to kind of massage this language a little bit here related shutdowns, we can. But operational expectations, what's gonna happen, and if they approve us not to have somebody on site during the weekends, you know, what that means, then that'll definitely be outlined in the permit.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that probably is addressed in another section, because I know this is all about electrical. And the discussion we were having when we came up with this 4.5.3 was. Do we want someone who's, so say we're out on 24 hour. We're off the hour, and someone goes home. Is eating dinner or is in bed, and an alarm comes on and says power outage. Do we want that person to then get up, go to the treatment plant and wait for the power to come back on and then restart it, or can we wait for more? That was just the intent of this.
Right, yes.
We're kind of close to it, can I just back up to 3 real quick?
Sure.
I thought there was a third prompt, it's actually page 5. And so it says promptly at the top on 3.3.1 and go promptly, notify 3.3.4. But then if you take out promptly, it just says go notify. So if we're gonna say promptly, I don't think we should put in a measurement. Promptly notify within X amount of time.
We can, I think some of this language like that was definitely attorney
It just
driven.
is.
So I don't know if there's a legal basis for promptly. But we can,
Anyway, it's just a thought.
Yeah.
It seems like there should be, if you're gonna say promptly, what does that mean? Does it mean, you know, in the cap, under the cap business model within 24 hours? I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, in this case, what we're referring to here.
So the review process.
Yeah, so this is. In reference to startup and commissioning, CSC will promptly notify CVWD of issues that arise during the startup and commissioning period. That may materially affect CSC's future ability to operate AWPF. So, you know, really just saying that if, while we're starting this facility up, they find something that's gonna cause them to have a problem operating the facility, they gotta tell us as soon as
so
they
maybe
can.
better word, if you're not gonna measure it, I would say better word is immediately.
Yeah, I don't, we can, I think that's
Immediately.
fine change.
Or without delay.
Without the
Sure.
immediately.
Okay, this question, so I take it there's no generator backup into this project?
That's correct,
How about sanitation, they got generator backup?
yes, yeah, so we do have, there is part of the AWPF that is connected to the MCC that has generator backup. And it's to sort of shut down the facility correctly. So it'll go through its proper shutdown sequence, because you need to flush the RO membranes. You don't have permeate and concentrate sitting in there. You want to remove it so you don't have that gradient. So you want to flush permeate back through so that there is no gradient between that membrane, because otherwise you'll get, instead of reverse osmosis, you'll get osmosis. And you'll potentially delaminate the membranes. So there is a portion of that process that is connected to generator power that'll shut down the facility correctly, but not operate.
Okay, and there's no future need or plan to have generator backup?
Yeah, the reason why we went that direction was this is not a critical facility, so if it's down for 5 hours, it's not gonna hurt anything.
That means the water just goes to the ocean.
Right.
But was that, I assumed that was a load-based decision, but was that just a monetary metering decision? I mean, if you can backflush your RO in range, you're using all the power you're gonna use regularly, basically, and you gotta be using a significant amount of capacity to that.
Oh, no, the for AWPF will use an immense amount of power compared to what it's gonna cost just to backflush those membranes, if that's what you're asking.
But in terms of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right, I mean, I think the idea was that for, whatever, this is not a critical facility. So the actual amount of time that we're gonna add or the water generated may be only on the order of, let's say, 10 hours per year. Does that justify the cost of spending, $1 million on a generator and then servicing that generator through the life of it? And the answer to that was no. So that's why we don't have permanent backup power for the AWPF.
Yeah, the majority of the power being used at the AWPF is obviously pushing it through the membranes.
Right.
So we're just simply backwashing them. So the power
That would be a hard shutdown on the push and backflush.
right.
Anything else on 4?
Yeah, just to remind you, so there's 2 levels of oversight. There's the operations committee,
Mhm.
and then the joint
Management committee.
management committee. So both of those levels will be looking at various things on an ongoing basis, but then when we get to certain triggers, we'll pull the management committee together, who has 3 of our board members and 2 of theirs, and we'll make some decisions based on what we think is the best route to go.
Okay, Article 5 is on maintenance, repair, and replacements. Largely here, what we're asking them to do is maintain a CMMS system, which stands for Computerized Maintenance Management System. It's just a way for them to track maintenance of the AWPF. So every part, every valve will have a tag on it that will go into this system. They'll upload the requirements of the manufacturer on how to maintain that valve, and then they'll get notifications. Okay, your 6-month period is up. It's time to maintain this valve.
Same software that you can, that exists.
That's the intent. They're just gonna basically add this to their CMS system. And so we're making sure that they do that, and that CBWD has access to those records upon request.
Is there an expectation for funding for their existing CMMS?
So generally speaking, yes. The idea there is that this is probably gonna, or perhaps, especially if we can't really figure out a way to itemize it, be part of that overhead, where it's just a sort of some proportion of their invoice for their CMMS system, assuming that there is some cost differential now, and sometimes I do. Six is all about staffing. So we define the need for a chief plant operator. We define their initial certification and expectation for higher level certification. And that language was pulled effectively from other permits that have been issued to AWPFs. It's been sort of the common requirement for and from UDW on facilities. You can test to a grade 3. You can't get higher until you operate them. And since this is such a new certification and there are so few plants, it's not, reasonable to expect somebody to come in with plant experience. AWPF plant experience, that is. Otherwise, we put hiring solely on the CSD. We define what's called our AWPF staff, which generally are work solely on the AWPF. But we do have this ability to do what's sharing staff. So in the events that AWPF needs some support, whether it's maintenance support or otherwise, CSD's existing staff can support the AWPF, and the inverse is true as well. So if there's a reason that AWPF staff can assist CSD, there's provisions that allow for that, although it's much more restrictive in when that can happen. But again, the idea is really to try and maximize your sort of efficient use of staff time. So rather than the AWPF staff are sitting around twirling their thumbs, nothing to do, that probably won't ever happen because these things take a lot of work. But if it does, and the CSD needs an emergency, something happens, then certainly they can take them and use them. All that being said, and we'll talk about it here at Article 8, time is tracked. So if an AWPF staff person works in the CSD, then they don't bill the CBWD for that time. And I think that's, any questions on this?
The idea behind this was, there are gonna be areas where you need more than a in-person staff, right? If you're doing a big job, for example. So those times, we wanna have the ability to ask the plant employees to come or assist. We get charged for that. But it's better than buying, or it's better than having a, full employee that only works when you have a big job going on.
Yeah, right. I mean, the alternative is that these plants may hire a dedicated mechanic. This plant's too small to have a dedicated mechanic. So, when small plants like this need mechanical work, they have to hire it out, which can be more costly than having a CSD mechanic work on something for a short duration. Article 7, monitoring and reporting. So these facilities require not an insignificant amount of monitoring and reporting to the state. So we wanted to define how and the relationship between the CSD and CBWD for reporting. This first or second section 7.2, one-time report development. So there'll be a lot of reports that are developed as part of commissioning process, and shortly thereafter, we're basically saying CBWD is going to take all those one-time reports. But ongoing reporting, the expectation is that the CSD will be responsible for generating the reports as it relates to the AWPF, and then CBWD will generate the reports as it relates to offsite facilities, all their monitoring wells. Ultimately, those will get bundled together because the state doesn't recognize necessarily it's one project. The monitoring wells, AWPF, it's one project. But we've seen examples, there are examples of this where you sort of have two different agencies, one doing the monitoring wells and injection, and then another agency operating the AWPF, modeling that sort of concept. So all of the monitoring well reporting will be certified by CBWD. We'll provide that to the CSD. They'll add all the AWPF reporting, put it together as a single report, and then send it off to the state.
Do both sides know how to do this reporting now?
Right now it's just collecting data, but yeah, we'll have to. We'll
As
definitely
like
have to-
training?
Yeah, we'll have to work with.
Yeah, I mean,
Other agencies.
Call somebody in who just kind of.
It-
So that both sides know what to do. Maybe Craig already has somebody that knows how to do that. I don't.
yeah, and this is definitely going to be unique compared to
Right.
what Craig does currently, and what I think the district does currently. You know, the goal too is to automate this as much as possible. So as much as we can spit out reports from the SCADA system, to automate all of that, you know, it's gonna be advantageous for everybody. Cause a lot of it is just sort of just spitting out, you know, daily records, you know, of whatever meters being monitored. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be also just a lot of, you know, doing what other agencies are doing in terms of reporting.
Yeah, we've already.
We've looked at,
Yeah, we've gotten reports from other agencies and looked at them, so we have an idea of what.
Just in thinking back over this whole document, I still haven't seen like a line of demarcation in terms of responsibilities. And I think that should be like a hard assessment.
so the JEPA does generally define that demarcation as the property line. So ownership,
More from like a treatment standpoint, like at the intake pumps to the AWPF or the CCB or whatever it is, like that line, I'll know that it's been defined or hasn't.
yeah, so. I think generally I mean, right, the demarcation is at the property line in terms of taking ownership of responsibility. It's right at the property line after we decided. From a reporting standpoint, there's gonna be everything well inside the plant, because your last point of monitoring is gonna be right at the treated water pump station, which is well within that property line. And your next point of monitoring is gonna be at the monitoring wells. So that I'm not too worried about, you know, that demarcation in terms of responsibility of in plant versus offsite, if that makes sense because of that reason.
Yeah, and so then like on the outlet side of the AWPF. Or is that like defined, is that our responsibility? It's part of that again.
Yeah,
Inbound and outbound,
yeah. Well, what do you mean by inbound then?
like in the AWPF. Right, into that, once we hit the property line.
No, that is all CSD. Your responsibility starts at the property line leaving the facility.
Right, that's one direction, but inbound, I think it's the Q tank. So
Oh.
once it hits.
Oh,
the
right.
Q tank, it's.
Right, okay, and then once it leaves, like what's the discharge line, is there a line? Like are we responsible for
Property
that?
line at the driveway, yeah, where the pipe.
Discharge.
Oh, discharge ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that we've.
We kind of generally say they are responsible for discharge, full stop. Unless, and I think that's actually sort of in here somewhere, anything might be in the tracking reimbursement. But they are responsible for discharge. This is where it gets a little complicated, it goes back to JEPA, unless the incoming effluent that's leaving the facility would meet NPDES discharge requirements, but the brine doesn't. That's when it would be CBW's responsibility. But if
See, I've gone back and forth on that, I thought we'd clarified it better, I guess not, because if they are the exclusive operator of that facility, their inability to operate it in a way that doesn't create a violation.
But there is some, I think, language in there related to that they need to, and we'd have to look back in the JEP, and that's all in the JEP. Yeah.
But a long, way early, let me see, and it, I'm sure that it is in Java that had kind of a basic, this was early on in our discussions, here's basically what we're doing, and here's what they're doing, and the boundary is critical, so I'm sure it's in there. It doesn't mean it should be in two, but I.
Yeah, so it's.
That was.
So it's 313 waste stream disposal. So CBD, so as the AWPF operator, CSD is responsible for managing disposal of all AWPF water that does not meet the requirements to be considered product water. So if we can't take it, it's theirs, their deal. CBWD is financially responsible for disposing of AWPF waste streams that do not meet CSD NPDES discharge permit for ocean discharge when source water, so this is incoming effluent to the AWPF, does the NPDS discharge permit. Gross discharge.
Almost never been.
Yeah, except for disposal issues caused by CSD negligence or intentional misconduct. So-
Suggested
Yeah,
that we incorporate gentle reference by reference in this action.
but we do. Yeah, it's article,
Specifically in answer to that question. You know, either a diagram, page number, or, you know, a paragraph.
Just to tie the two together.
Yeah,
That's the meaning there.
Again, I don't think. I'm not sure this place to go through the. You know, the system design aspects, we're trying to do what you shouldn't be documenting. Governance. And I think the point is that it's connection to. The definition of what isn't in this.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're saying.
And reporting popped it up just because I could see them make the case, well, hey, the brand loan, we gotta now do another test, now that's on you to cover the cost of that, even though it's. So I was curious on how that funding demarcation. occurred.
yeah,
I guess, is it well defined or is defined a little bit?
Figures.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll make a note of it, so we can kind of track that down.
Simple approach is incorporate by reference.
Yeah,
I understand that properly.
Yeah, I think that waste stream section is more for off-spec water, is what I think it's trying to address.
yes, I believe so.
It's not environmental, it's the water that we get through the ability to get it stops back, we got it, who's on the way.
Finishing here, Article 774, similar to reporting, or, saying sampling. Everything that's within the ADPF is being sampled by CSD. Everything that's outside of the ADPF is being sampled and monitored by CBWD. Okay, Article 8, it's all about invoicing and reimbursement. That might advance. So obviously there's a lot of, this is a relatively important article. First portion is just defining the general idea behind CBD being responsible for paying for project costs. Got our invoice period here, and then our invoice breakdown. So the way that we've broken this down, there are 4 sort of principal categories of the invoice, or expectation is. We have our labor costs, and that'll be split between AWPF staff and CSD staff. The next category is our overhead expense, and we've spent a lot of time of working through what is to be considered overhead. But I think generally speaking, the intent here is that if we can't meaningfully split it out and track it, and then it's an expense that has been increased because of AWPF by the CSD, that it would be covered in this overhead multiplier. So some examples that we gave here, insurance. To the extent that their insurance quote's not going to have a separate insurance line item for the AWPF or CSD, and they're going to get some now insurance bill that is slightly higher than it was previously, we'll try and capture that within this overhead multiplier. But if it can be separately itemized, we're going to separately itemize it. And importantly too, we're not going to duplicate costs. So if we're atomizing it separately, then it's not going to be included within the overhead multiplier. And ultimately, the overhead multiplier must be approved as a part of the budgeting process, which is ultimately approved by the Joint Management Committee, which again has a 3-2 in favor of the water district. So there's a lot of oversight protections for the water district against a overhead multiplier that is questionable. There has been discussion that we had about adding in right to audit, which is not currently in here, but we certainly should add. And then as well as a payment protest, in case there are aspects of the invoice that we disagree with. The next item, direct reimbursables, I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but if there's cost for consumables, equipment replacement parts, they're gonna include an invoice, and have it itemized within that direct reimbursable portions. And then capital modifications, this is probably less necessary, but we've included a provision here, and capital modifications are the next article that we can talk about more fully. So, to go back to your original question, oh, that's still capital modifications, so we're not quite there yet. And there's an annual budgeting process. So operations committee will convene and develop an annual budget that ultimately is presented to the joint management committee by January of each year. This gives you enough time to then incorporate it into your own budget. We've got item here on utilities. Again, the idea, we've got a separate meter, so that Edison meter is going to be in the water district's name. And then, yes, okay. Any questions on invoicing? Okay. Okay, Article 9, capital modifications. Oh, there we go. So defines procedures and obligations by the CSD and CBW when there's a design or process change. It's not intended to cover if there's a valve that needs replacing and the district is going to replace that valve in kind. This is really to cover where we're recognizing as a team that there should be a process change that will benefit the ADPF, and that this is the mechanism in which we'll move through that. So, generally speaking, you know, neither party is allowed to move forward unilaterally with a capital modification. They're really kind of working together here. Generally speaking, CBWD will bear responsibility of cost. There are exceptions there. If there happens to be a capital modification that has no benefit to the ADPF, should be paid for by the CSD. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then, right, so it's going back to now the definition of what a capital modification is. You did want to provide some flexibility to implementing a changed condition to the facility that doesn't require sort of this process outlined in Article 9. So we've defined as a part of the capital modification definition that capital modification excludes changes up to $2,000 in value. So if, let's say, you know, we think there's benefit from adding a pressure gauge, and it's just a standard pressure gauge, and all it requires is a tap and a manual gauge and a pipe. You know, I assume that might be less than $2,000. That change could be made without going through this process. So, capital modifications exclude changes up to $2,000 in value, provided they don't exceed $10,000 over the course of the year. Those values are up for negotiation. This was our first guess, and if there's desire to either increase or decrease those numbers, I think, you know, that can be brought up for discussion.
Well, it seems like initially you had 500 and
5,000.
5,000, and so
Yeah.
whatever, recently you just decided to opt out of it.
Yeah, and I think that was just, you know, the idea that you can't do anything for $500. So
So why not just, I mean, this is a capital program, why not just put that it's in the annual budget?
The capital modifications do get added to the annual budget.
Right, so why is the numbers here will have to change at some point, maybe, why not just? It's either budgeted for or not, what's the,
These are like, mid-year changes, so. They realize, oh, you know, we don't have a good view of what's happening over here.
so is the expectation then that we have a $10,000 pot allocated to that annually?
I mean, perhaps, yes, right, I mean, practically speaking, that's probably what that might mean. Is that you just have an annual pot of $10,000 that can be used for small things. Otherwise, right, it would need to be listed as a line item as a part of the budget, you know, we're going to. Add a flow meter here, which is gonna require piping from here to here, and this flow meter, and it's gonna be $15,000. That'll be a separate line item in next year's annual budget. But right, for all intents and purposes, it probably just means there's a $10,000 just allowance for stuff that might need to get done.
Yeah, versus planned capital modification, which, you know. Might be.
Yeah, I guess my point still would be that in 10 years from now, this number's probably won't get you.
Yeah.
All on sprinkler heads, why put a number, I guess, instead of just. Allowing it to be set in the budget or.
Because I think otherwise, if the way that this is outlined, any change is a capital modification, so. Just trying to provide some flexibility there.
Yeah, and then, you know. You change or you add a pressure gauge, you have to go through the whole process.
Yes, but I guess you could leave the all language and just say that are within the allocated budget amount of that fiscal year.
Hey, you gotta start petty cash flow.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it doesn't matter, but we'll have to change this management agreement every. Hopefully every 10 years or whatever, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah. And then there was some discussion at the Recycle Water Committee to sort of delete this language that was added as a part of 9.3 about this aggregate cost of capital modifications. Or it says here, if the proposed capital modification would exceed the aggregate cost of all capital modifications in the applicable budget year to exceed 100% of the budget year, budget amount, the requesting party will yada yada yada. So we're just gonna strike all of that addition and not include it within sort of that final. Any other questions on this? Otherwise, the intent here is to continue this process with CSD, and that we would bring a final agreement to your board on December 12th.
This is a prerequisite for the city's. Permit.
No,
No, the JEPA was. Was this part of it? No? Was it just the JEPA? We can look that up. Yeah.
Can you refresh my memory in the JEPA's dispute resolution, what's the final step, is it?
Sure, let me just bring it up because I have no.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. This is why. Okay.
I think we left litigation open,
Okay, no, yeah, I couldn't remember what we
but I
learned.
think there's a process that you have to go through. Some sort of.
Yeah, it's pretty lengthy, so I'm not gonna be able to.
Yeah, I just
Read it
know
here.
the final.
Yeah,
step, litigation or-
it's okay, in the event the dispute is not resolved by mediation, the dispute may be resolved by binding arbitration. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So not full on litigation, but.
Yeah, so I guess to sum up my biggest fear with this contract. Is that we get into a position where we don't agree anymore. And then we are stuck with the facility sitting. For however long it takes to get to the solution. Without the ability to. Step in and. Hire another contractor, whatever it is, to take over operations and to force operation, I guess is my biggest fear, and a lot of this. Stuff ends up going to the joint management committee, which is 3-2, but. We can vote 3-2 and they can still say, well, no, like. We're not gonna operate it, whatever it is, like, we don't have a lot of influence on the facility, which is fine by design, I understand it. But, yeah, I guess my big fear is that we end up. 20 years from now, when we're all gone, there's two mean people working in your environment. They get into some disagreement. It's that, oh, we're stuck sitting on this place for a year or 2 years.
You could look at something like that where. There's a timeline that you have to resolve, or you have the right to bring outside operations to.
Yeah,
You know, I've been sitting here through this, thinking,
Agree.
how long is pregnant? You know, how long, it went through my head. Casey, both sides have gotten along very, very well, even well before Cat was an idea. So it kept going through my head, what if there's a big fight with new personalities and then.
I start with continue to operate during this.
Yeah. I think-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I guess that would alleviate like a ton of my.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sits there.
Yeah.
It does, so there was some sort of.
And that-
For the one that happened.
yeah, so that seemed like it's pretty easy to add language that would be agreeable, continue to operate during this period.
Yeah, start here and again,
Right,
check off.
Now, we have to go back to the jet for that, or if we do it in the agreement?
seems like that. would fit into the operating agreement, and each agreement has equal weight.
It's all
So,
the operation.
right, yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
Point of, or through the chair, you know, I forgot to mention, or I forgot to announce something I was planning on to the head of the meeting, and that is. You may notice that we have a council that looks different from regular council. You know, and Gina was actually sitting right back there. So moving forward, Michael Pellegrini, who's with the same firm, will be manning this seat. And I think Gina Joy, this will be the last time you attend a board meeting. Thank you very much for all the help. You're here, yeah, so. Just to let you all know, if you're wondering what's going on over there.
I think we did by me, by. Ruth,
They are typically appointed by name, but we're going out to, you know, at the end of the year, if the contract is over, and we're gonna review all the things, so. And then get a engagement letter.
Congratulations in order.
Up to you,
Your opportunity.
Congratulations.
You'll let us know a year from now, right?
Well, we can probably move forward.
Yeah. Then we got item number 8C, consider engagement of Pueblo Water Resource for groundwater related permitting and vision assistance for the CAP project on amount not to exceed $55,341 for action involved.
Yeah, so, you know, the well portion, the groundwater well portion of, CAP is a little bit different, it's not a little, it's a lot different than all the other general, civil type work. In that it needs, you know, someone that has knowledge of, well construction, has knowledge of the Carpinteria groundwater basin, has knowledge of kind of the modeling that we're using to understand what's happening in the basin. And that all goes towards two things, which this proposal is looking at. One is the permitting, the portion of permitting that requires some knowledge of groundwater in Carpinteria. And also the portion of bidding assistance as we get closer to the well construction. So the packages of plans and specs for the whole project is broken into three pieces. The third piece is this is the well package. And so we'll be doing the bidding. For that, we'll be, reaching out to contractors, answering questions, so. It would be Pueblo and, that was originally part of, Woodard Grant's contract, but what happened was, there was more assistance needed, that was belonging to the budget of Woodard and Grant, so we're now taking that scope of work moving forward out into the contract and just kind of directly awarded to, or hopefully awarded to Pueblo, who's, so, that work would go until August 2026, which is the beginning of the construction, so it's actually not construction phase work. This is sort of the in between completion of design and starting construction. And so they sent us a proposal for 55,341, and we're looking for authorization to engage them.
How's it gonna be fun?
It'll be funded with a SRF, one of them, test cap. All of these are basically being funded by from the same source.
Is one of recurrence expenditures dropped as a result?
Yeah, so there was some bidding there was some permit assistance that was being done without any funding in their contract, so that used up the bidding assistance fund, so we took it out, and we said, since there was nothing budgeted for this bidding assistance or permitting assistance, let's create a.
Sorry.
Is that the right? No, it's 55.
341.
Here we get the second.
Oh,
Yeah, same,
55.
so moved.
You got a motion in a second, any more discussion, roll call please.
Director O'Connor.
Second. 55.
Director Holcomb.
Yes.
Director Ball.
Aye.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got item number 8D, consider engagement with public water resources for hydrological services, including testing and assessment of El Caro number 2 well and headquarters well in an amount not to exceed $65,618 per action well.
Yeah, so this is part of, it's a little bit of Sigma, but it's also, I think, more related to CAP. And so as we, one of the ideas behind CAP is we're recovering water from these two wells. After we inject it, we blow it out of these two wells. The monitoring well system that we're developing, we, as you know, drilled El Caro Park monitoring well. That was done under a Signal grant. But we're finding that there's high arsenic in these wells, and so we've been messing around with them, pumping them, trying to develop them more. We've run the pump for, a month straight to see if that helps. We let time go by and sample, see if that helps. And in general, it's not, it's just, it's sort of a head scratcher of why this is happening. And one of the missing pieces of data that we need to really zero in on why that might be happening is we need to find out what the water quality is in each zone at our two wells. Arsenic is typically non-detect in those wells, but there's a theory that maybe the water coming from the C zone, which is the worst zone of the property wells, is actually not in arsenic. It's just getting blended out with all the other water comes from B and A. So that's one thing. We also want to understand better how quickly the water moves from the injection wells to the extraction wells. We have a groundwater model that we developed and calibrated, but it's not zone specific, so we don't know how much water is coming through each zone, how quickly that water will travel, so that's another thing that we want to understand. And then finally, we want to ultimately update the groundwater model so that it reflects, you know, on the ground data. We've done it so far, we calibrated by longer term data, so we, you know, you see the hydrograph over 25 years, when you take your model and you do things to, you know, so that it matches that hydrograph. But we've not looked at specific areas and specific conductivity to specific zones. And so that information will help us track where the water from cap goes in and out, gets to our wells, or how, you know, how it might go somewhere else. And so we've never done this, so this will be the first time. We'll set a baseline and then periodically come back and reevaluate, see if anything's changing.
Sorry.
I've been stationed in Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. When I moved here in 1997, I was told, don't drink the water because it has arsenic in it. And I did anyway, and everybody that asked me around town, I say, oh, I drank the water, it's the same, is it same?
Yeah, so it's not detected in our groundwater wells.
Because we drank water in Asia, and I came here in America, and it was
Yeah, it's not detected in our wells, so meaning it's below the detectable limit. But then when we go to these monitoring wells, we're pulling water out and it's, you know, well over there, so we're trying to figure out why is that.
Could you just expand on like the use of the data? What the.
Yes, so we have a groundwater model. This is one use. So we have a groundwater model. It makes assumptions about how each zone is, what the conductivity in each zone is. And when you inject the water into 3 different zones, 25% maybe goes into the A, and then, you know, 40 into the B, and then, you know, whatever's left into the C. But we don't know. We don't really have any idea. And so those conductivities are all different in those zones. So we built a model, and then we developed tracer studies that show the time it takes for water to go from injection point to these extraction. It has to be at least 4 months. We eventually will have to do tracer studies, just to prove that our model is right, but this will help kind of zero that in. The other purpose is just to troubleshoot that one healthcare module. So like I said, there's a theory that the C zone module is actually high in arsenic, but we're just not taking any water. We're not getting any water at the El Caro #2 well from the C zone, so it's coming out non-detect. That's what we're trying to figure out. Yeah.
Is there any chance that this will change I mean. This would give us information which will either prove or disprove that we've got enough transmittal time between the injection and the withdrawal was, right? So, I mean, this would almost seem like it'd be critical data to get before we put in an injection well.
Yeah, I mean, again, we have a model that's,
Pretty confident in that.
yeah, I think, you know. I think we kind of concluded that it's accurate enough, but it's a rate, right? So we don't know.
Well, I guess we should, if we're gonna do this, we should do it now before we put it in the injection.
Yeah,
Maybe just to also respond real
This
quick, that
work gets done in January.
Yeah.
the state minimum is 2 months in the ground. Right now, our travel time expected is like almost a year. So we have quite a bit of cushion there. Generally, they should expect it maybe to be twice as fast. That's with
Other
other.
extraction wells that are closer, they're private,
there are.
so isn't there likelihood that that's gonna be
They're ag wells.
drawn over that way? Or injection water is drawn that way?
Yeah, so they're kind of exempt from the drinking water.
I know that, but I mean, really, our water probably. There's a chance.
We have done some calculations on that, and it is very little. But expected, yes.
So we can call that a side draft or something.
Yeah, and we can pull up the numbers if we want to see them, but it was part of that anti-degradation study that was done. And it's, yeah, very little. It may end up at some of those ag wells, and it's over a longer period of time as well.
Will something like this be done once it's online, I assume? Like,
Yeah, we'll have to do tracer studies where we actually
Yeah, so I guess my,
For the monitor around that are.
yeah, my question is if the engineering's already done and then we're gonna do this in a year anyway, what do we get out of doing it now and then doing it later?
Well, we wanted, I think the urgency is really related to the monitor also at Elk Bear Park, we want to get those. We want to know if we have to drill another monitor,
Oh,
basically,
that's the,
we're trying to troubleshoot this thing
figure
around,
that out.
yeah, we're out of options, but this will help us.
Okay, can we have a motion then? If there's no more questions?
I'll make a motion to support the follow, contract not to exceed $65,618.
Second,
Got a motion in a second, any more discussion, then roll call please.
Director O'Connor.
Aye.
Director Holcomb.
Yes.
Director Ball.
Aye.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director Brown.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
then we got item number 9, director reports. Item 9A, PTWA regular board meeting, October 23rd, 2025, Casey.
yeah, so the agenda is in your packet, you'll see there's not a lot going on, there's some road maintenance, and then, got a new chemical contract, and, those are kind of the big things, done another lengthy closed session, and, that's it, unless there's any questions on anything.
Okay, move on to item number 9B, recycled water committee meeting, November 10, 2025. Casey and Matt.
Well, yeah, we covered it.
Right, yeah.
I think it is, 8A and 8B were discussed extensively, as we discussed.
Got it. And then we got item number 9C, administrative committee meeting, November 11, 2025. That's Polly and Matt.
Just let me clean up that agenda again,
Yeah, if you want to recuse yourself on this, we did discuss that on you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, we just reviewed our methods and policies on how we intend to serve letters, and it was discussed that it'd be a good time to review it. As we routinely review all our policies and procedures, just to make sure it's very clear what the purpose of that letter is, how we help it, so. That's gonna be further work for staff to come back with a reevaluation or just the evaluation. The intent to serve letter process.
Alright,
And then,
I can get case back.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just Okay, case.
Okay, then we're down to item number 9, sorry, 10, general manager report its financials. Is there anything you want to?
Yeah, you should have a. Report, single page report from Longmont. Basically says we're at the end of the first quarter, expenses are roughly 25%. And revenues are roughly 25%, so. No big surprise.
We're on track now.
Sales is like they're back in the positive.
Well, these kind of drive. People are.
Sorry, the money will trend, the opposite, so.
Okay, if there's no questions there, then we'll move on to item number 11, closed session items. 11A, closed section items, appointment, code section 54957, title general manager. Item number 11B, closed session item, the conference with labor negotiator pursuant to government code section 54957.6. Agency designated representative paid commission or president, unrepresented employee, general manager. And then so that's it, so we're gonna go for it. Thank you, so we're back in open session, there's no reportable action on item number 11A. And no reportable actually on item number 11B. Then we consider dates and items for the agenda for Carpinteria Valley Water District Special Board Meeting on November 19, 2025 at 5:30 P.M. at the Carpinteria City Hall. 5775 Carpinteria Avenue, Carpinteria, California. I'd like to ask one question, unless somebody else going, but Bob, and I know we'll be beating this thing around, it's gonna rain a lot, we're probably gonna lose some water. Is there any way by our next meeting, you can let us know, hey, if we sell without negative fee? If we need to sell it before it gets away, or if we put 2,000 basic feet in storage somewhere, it saves us. We get 1,000 back in the next 5 years, if we can just see what the.
Like, hey, move it,
Yeah, it's, we've been talking with people and it's looking pretty bleak in terms of
Sell,
selling, because it's so late from here,
but as far as putting in storage,
yeah. Same thing.
you mean, nobody bought it?
No, to get it in,
Oh, sorry, storage.
yeah, people are interested in storage because they're all filled up because they've been traveling.
Except our basin, we have room years.
We just came a little bit late, but we can discuss.
Okay, let's just put it in the agenda and then, okay, fair enough, meeting adjourned, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul.